Hey guys, so today I want to give you guys an update on how the progress of the tutorial is going. So I'm going to show you around, and it's easier to show than, you know, why is it taking so long? Well, because, well, first I have a full-time job and I can't just create content all the time. I wish I could. But it takes some time, and I've been doing some experimenting. I've been trying to improve my process. I want to be able to teach you guys the best way possible to create buttons out of real car parts. And as you can see here, I have the Volvo, climate control here. So this is pretty much what I use in my simulator to, work as a joystick. So you can see there, all the buttons are mapped in game. All the buttons up there. The radio works, but that's just a radio. And the phone, also the light switch, everything works, but there's basically two ways to make it work. And this is a question I get a lot. For instance, in this BMW, I could, in theory, connect all these wires here to the CAN bus. So, for instance, this hazard lights here, I could connect it to a CAN bus line and make it work, but unfortunately, making it work like that is very time consuming. It's not as straightforward. You have to, what they call, sniff the CAN bus, so you got to find all the codes, all the IDs, and then you have to write another code that will integrate with your computer, so you'll be able to tell, like, if I press this button here, it will turn on the hazards. I see a lot of people out there, and to their credit, it's pretty hard work that they made all the buttons work, but not with the computer. They just work. So you turn the keys on, the lights will turn on, you can press the buttons, turn them around, but that's not useful if you're playing a game. So in my case, when I press, for instance, the air recycle, I usually map this one because it has a little car with, the arrow. I just think, well, this is a good camera button. So whenever I press this button, it just changes to a different camera. Or the on and off AC turns the car on and off. I have the brake bias in the temperature side. I have, different settings for each button, and I can map them any way I want. So I have the comfort, the sport, advanced. I can map different ECU configurations, that kind of stuff. And there's basically, like I was saying, two to three ways to achieve it. So you can use CAN bus, which means you're going to have something like this, which is a CAN bus shield that goes on top of this Arduino. And this talks car language, basically, and converts it into some digital language. And it can get information from your sim hub and be able to play games with. So that's why this cluster here from the BMW E60, works, and it can see the speed, and it can see the RPMs, just like in my Volvo also. Now, the way I do it is I prefer it working as a joystick. So essentially, I'm turning this into a glorified button box. Essentially, I'm using the same buttons behind here and the LEDs to just do whatever I want to do in the game. And you can do that by using different ways. Like, for instance, this is my old version of the climate control, and it still works. I just would have to put another Arduino micro here, but this is one of my early versions. So I put a rotary encoder here, not the original Volvo one, so it's kind of heavy to turn. It works, but it's heavier. This one also works, but it's it's not the same feeling. And I'm very picky with that. I like to have, you can hear by the sound. Let me put the microphone closer. And here. So you don't get that clicking. and the clicking for me is important. So here, like I was saying, I'm using an Arduino. So this is our Arduino Leonardo. And the Leonardo is essentially just connected into the PCB here in order to make the buttons work. So whenever I press a button, it will just register the press into the Arduino, and that will send through USB to the computer, and the computer will see this as a joystick. Now, The other way to do that is by using different buttons. So for instance, I have here, this is where I have my buttons collection. So for instance, you have here, like, let's get this button here. So it's a button, and you would just pretty much replace whatever you find inside of there. And I can't just grab it right now with one hand. Let's see if I almost... All right, I'll cut this until I made it out. All right, so I got one out. So you see here the button. Essentially, you can just put the button on top of the board, wherever the board needs. So in order to, when you press it, and I'm going to click it, and then when you click it, you just, you know, get a button. And then you connect to an Arduino, and the only thing you're doing essentially is you're using this as a fancy, you know, button box. Instead of 3D printing one, you can just use the car one. Same applies for the BMW, any part, any car, any model, any year. And that's why I think it's a little bit easier than if you use, you know, like the CAN bus line, because the CAN bus line can be quite hard, especially if you don't, you know, really know the codes and you don't have the car to just, you know, pretty much just sniff the CAN bus. And here's, you know, more examples. So essentially what you can do is you can get this, which is just a PCB that goes inside of here. And as you can see, I put all the wires here. So these wires are tapping into the small holes that makes the connection for the buttons. So for this one, I'm not using an external button. Instead, I'm using the buttons that are already here. So when I press the button, the feeling I get is exactly the same. So it won't change the tactile feeling. Here you can see I changed the LEDs, and here also you can change, you can tap into the LEDs. And by doing that, when you connect to the Arduino, it's also possible to pretty much just get the lights to switch on and off while you're pressing the buttons. So I'll be showing that in detail in my tutorial that I'm recording. I promise it's coming. It's just taking some time, and I wanted to make this video to update you guys on the progress, because a lot of people have been asking me, where is the tutorial? I post on my TikTok, my Instagram, and my Facebook, and people are always asking, where's the tutorial? And it's coming. I promise it's coming. But I just want to show you the process around. And this is another thing. Like, you can get like the encoders here, the rotaries, to just, and put them here. You essentially remove whatever you had. Like I removed here. There's a rotary that goes here originally. You can see here where it connects to. But essentially you put this there, connect it to an Arduino, and boom, you have a control. So this is one way of doing it, and it can be done, and let me show you here. So you can basically use three types of boards. You can use this, which is an Arduino Micro Pro, and I hope the focus comes to here. There, kind of go, no. All right, kind of focused here, but you get the idea. So this is an Arduino board, and this Arduino Micro Pro is good because it's easy to make it be recognized as a joystick or a keyboard on a computer. As for the coding, I will show you guys on my tutorial how to do the coding, but don't be scared. Coding, I've been coding with ChatGPT. I don't know how to code, and I can do that. You can too. So you can use an Arduino, so you put all the wires connected there. You can also use, this is an extension. Essentially, what this does is if you have too many LEDs and buttons, like I have here, you can just have more buttons and LEDs connected to your original Arduino. And another way to do that is by using an ESP32, a board like this. So this is the board I am using on my steering wheel, because I don't want a wire just hanging out to connect to my computer. So the ESP32 advantage is that you can connect it, and here you can see a little bit of the board. It's upside down, it's like backwards, but you can see the ESP32 there. So this is Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Essentially, it's just tapping into the Fanatec power, which is 5 volts. That's all it needs. And I have power on my ESP32. So by doing that, that allows me to have a wireless controller working on the computer versus the Arduino Micro Pro that has an USB connection. Both work just as good, but one is Wi-Fi and the other is not. So those are the main ways, and you can use an Arduino Leonardo, just like I was showing on the original board here. And I apologize for the mess. It's hard to show everything, and but here you can see the Arduino Leonardo. So Leonardo and a Micro right there. Both are working in tandem here because there's a lot of buttons. You can kind of see the rotary encoder, and I'm going to show in detail outside here. So that rotary is this one, which is being used there. That's why it doesn't get the same tactile feeling. And in my new version, this is the, say, 3.0 now, because it's like the 3rd or 4th version that I'm using. You can hear the click. Oh, that's perfect. And you can toggle the LEDs. So all of this can be achieved by programming. And when I click these buttons, the PC thinks I'm clicking a joystick, just like any joystick. Same for these buttons, same for all the buttons that are here. And all of them can get the LEDs on and off. And in fact, there's even a sequence that I can make. Like, I'm going to shut it off. Now it's off. And I'm going to turn the power back on. And you're going to see that the LEDs now are just doing a dance sequence. This is just to make sure that all the lights are working and everything is working properly. So there you go. It finished the sequence and now it's working. This is quite easy to do, and this is where, you know, I'm going to dedicate a lot of time to my tutorial just to just make sure that everybody understands it. Now, showing a little bit more here of the things, I can, for instance, give you an example here. So this is the radio for a BMW E60. That if you go to my stories, the shorts videos, you'll see that I made a BMW E60 also. And I'm going to use this as an example in my tutorial because it's not only for Volvos. A lot of people think I'm making this only for Volvos, and it's not the case. You can do this with any car whatsoever. It doesn't matter if it's a Volvo, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Ford, Toyota, whatever. You know, you get the point. So all you have to do is I'm going to have to take this apart and I'm going to find the buttons that are back there. And then you use a multimeter to pretty much find out which are making, you know, which of these little terminals here give the signal that I can send to the Arduino. And once I get that, I can just solder a new wire here and connect it there, and it's done. It's that simple. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, but it works. The same thing for the light switch, the same thing for this climate control, the same thing for everything here. The main difference that, for instance, if you want to get, like I have the navigation screen here, which it's just a, it's not a real Apple CarPlay. This is just a SimHub app that is running here on my LCD. So essentially, this is a monitor connected to an HDMI port on my my computer. And if you want to achieve that, all you need to do is, let's take this as an example. So this, again, it's the iDrive from a BMW. All you have to do is I'm going to remove that screen, and I'm going to put another screen that is compatible. So you need a little controller board like this one, and this one has an HDMI input and an RCA if you want, and a VGA if you're, you know, have an older computer, but that wouldn't be the case. And it also has buttons. You can put a touch screen if you really want. And here is the screen itself. So you can buy these pretty cheap on AliExpress. Get this one is open, so easier to show. You can get these for pretty cheap, like 30 bucks on AliExpress. And this specific one is, I think it's 1080. I don't remember for sure, but I think it's 1080. And then you connect that part in the back to this here, connect this to your computer just like you would with a monitor, and you can send to the screen whatever you want. So if you want to send an Apple CarPlay, if you want to send whatever gauge you have available on your SIM hub, you can do all that. So this is where the state of things are right now. And I'm working on getting this done. I want to show in detail to everyone how to connect the buttons. For some, for instance, like this one is a cool example. Like this is just a button matrix with the LEDs in the back. So this one I didn't even have to tap into, because I was able to identify all the pins, what they do, and I'm going to show that on the video, how to get these connected, because this is just a button. And you can just connect this straight to your Arduino and get it connected. So here in the back, you see here with the LEDs working. This is just connected to an Arduino with the original wires. Just like the here in the back of the computer, the steering wheel, I have this D-pad here of directional up and down that was used originally to control the navigation. That is connected straight to this. This is another one that I have as an example here. So essentially it's just another button matrix. So if I tap wires in here, and I can get it to focus, but if you tap wires in here and connect them to here, it will work. It's that crazy. And the only things that you'll have to be more creative is when you start having things that are connected by CAN bus. Sometimes they're shielded by other components, and then it starts to get a little more complicated, especially when you get to, like, you have some, I won't be able to show here, but there's some, resistors and capacitors and all that kind of stuff. I'll be talking about that in the tutorial in detail. But don't be scared about that. Those are pretty easy, and I didn't know about them either. I learned about it using ChatGPT. That's all. That's all there is. For instance, let me show you here. This here, and I hope it's not, I don't think it's focused, but these capacitors here are the capacitors that take 5 volt and turn into 3.2 volts for the LEDs to work. And I found that just by using a multimeter. So this is essentially what you have to do, is just find what each of those things do, and you connect tiny wires, and these tiny wires you connect to a board, such as an Arduino Micro Pro, a Leonardo, or an ESP32. Essentially, that's it. And once you're done, you've got a working simulator. As one can tell, there's a lot of work to do. The tutorial is not done yet. I'm working on it, and I really want to release it as soon as possible. Stay tuned, subscribe to my channel. Make sure to follow me on social media. I post a lot more there than here on long form content. I want to change that. I want to start posting more on the long formats. But make sure you ask questions. If you have any questions, I try to be as helpful as possible. In my link tree in my social media, you can find the link for the Apple CarPlay. You can find a tutorial to get the cluster working on the Volvo, and it's quite fun. And I've been working here on this. It's pretty much a test bench that has been working right there. So I have another cluster there, and don't get scared. There's soldering to do, but that's not complicated at all. So I hope to see you guys soon again, and I'll keep you posted on the progress of my tutorial.